So I understand your brother passed away at 45 minutes after birth,
Yeah,
and his name was Morris J.
yeah.
Let's talk about your parents and your relatives. What can you share
Well,
about them?
my dad's name was Francis Monroe Mitten, and my grandfather was Delta Mitten, and my grandmother was Carmi
Okay.
Mitten. Now, Carmi Mitten, before she was married, was a hen line, and also my grandfather mother Molly was had some Native American blood in her. She was not 100% Native American, but she had some, as far as we know. And they had four children. My dad, Aunt Marge, and Uncle Ralph, and Aunt Jean. So that was their four children.
Okay.
And on my mother's side was the Maybes, and I had quite a few there. Had Grandma Maybe, and she died fairly. I was not really that young. I mean, I was young when she died, and my grandpa Maybe, he worked at the Pure Milk Company delivering milk, and my
Okay.
cousin Phil and I would ride in the truck with him, and we'd run up and take a bottle of milk up and get the empty bottle that they have on their porch, bring it back. That's in the old days when they delivered milk that way. That was odd compared to today. Everything's in the store.
Yeah, that was pretty common.
Yeah, you go by and you see the empty bottles out on the front porch steps, and you run up there, taking another bottles and grab them bottles and come back. Then after he got done delivering, he'd take us back to the Pure Milk Company, and they had ice cream there, and he would give us some ice cream to eat. So.
It still goes on, the milk delivery, but not to that extent anymore.
No, I don't see it anywhere around here anymore.
Yeah, there's a company, a guy who ran for governor about 6 years ago. He did not make it. I can't think of his name. He's got a bunch of ice cream places too.
Oh yeah, I can't think of the name, but I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, and they still
Yeah,
do that. Oberweis, right?
Overvice, yeah, but
Yes.
they sell. They did have store. They don't deliver.
Okay.
They have a store in Gurnee.
Okay. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So they just sell, make ice cream and sell it, or ice cream products. And there are very few. In fact, I'm seeing a lot of problems in Wisconsin of dairy farms
Okay.
too. That's they're not like they used to be. If you don't have 300 cows that you're milking, you're not in the business.
Really?
Yeah, years ago, you had 25 cows or so. That's what you milked.
Okay.
You made your living on that. You can't do that today. And you'll go up there and you'll see farmhouses, silos, old silos, are not being used anymore because they don't have cattle. So
Is it just because become expensive?
yeah, the economy of it all. A
And
lot of the farmers that were doing dairy work
uh-huh.
turned into just raising beef cattle.
Okay.
Instead, that's what happened up there in Wisconsin.
A lot of big companies got in, and they're producing a
Yeah,
lot
they're
of
in
processed
Wisconsin.
and artificial stuff.
Yeah, there's a couple of places up in Wisconsin I know of. They were milking probably 200 cows. They're big business in the milk. And
Yeah.
California's got big in that.
Right. 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 So tell us, how did you get into playing the guitar?
Oh, well, I loved music. Just part of our family stuff. My Uncle Ralph is on my dad's side of the family. he was in music business, and I had some uh, great uncles that played guitar and banjo. And my Uncle Ralph, he had his own band called Skeets and the Circle Bar Boys. And he was on Marion, Indiana every Saturday. He'd have an hour show of playing music. And I'd always write to him once a month, tell him to play a song for me. It was the same song, the Freight Train Blues.
Uh-huh.
And he'd always say, "Well, I got my nephew here wants to hear Freight Train Blues again, so we're gonna do her."
Was he your favorite uncle?
Yeah, not only a favorite uncle, but he was one that you like to listen to because he had a good band and music. And when I got to probably about 7 or 8, then I got a ukulele and started tinkering around with that. And then when I got into high school, I had got a cheap guitar, not a very expensive one. But then when I got out of, come up here and started working, I got myself a couple of really nice guitars, and I used to play them quite a bit, but not anymore. I just got out of it and wished I hadn't. It's going to take me a while to get back into it because you got to get them calluses on your fingers or your fingers get sore.
Right.
Yeah, he was a Skeets and the Circle Bar Boys, yeah. And his daughter sang in on radio stations too, and had her own band later on.
Okay. Tell us about spending time with your uncles and aunts and their families.
Oh, we back in them days, you don't see it like that now, like you did then. Back in them days, you had family reunions once a year where you got your mother's side of the family would get together. They would have a big feast and music and square dance. You get on the dad's side of the family, then they would have the same thing, you know. And they'd have a feast and play penny ante, poker, and all that kind of stuff. So they didn't have televisions weren't around.
Right.
So that's how and then they went to different places on weekends a lot.
Were these reunions separate or were they combined?
No, one would be the mom's side of the family.
Okay.
And that'd be a separate one, and dad's side.
How many people got together?
Oh, you'd have about 40, 50 sometimes, maybe sometimes even more.
About the same both sides?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, especially when it got a little bit later in the years because everybody started having more family, kids and stuff running around and things.
Were these reunions usually at the house or outdoor in the
A
park?
lot of them, they went to parks.
Okay.
Yeah, some of them, they was at the house, like on my mom's side, Uncle Hirsch Garrison had a big garage, and they'd have it all cleaned out, and that's where they would have the square dancing in the garage there.
Oh, nice.
And then he would call the square dance. They had the music on recorder, and all the ladies would bring different types of foods to it. Oh, you had a real feast.
Okay. So this music, was it on records or radio?
These records.
Okay.
Back in that time, it was them disc records.
Yeah.
12-inch disc. They would play that, and then my uncle would call the square dance.
Okay.
He was pretty good at it. And then, of course, on my dad's side of the family, Uncle Ralph would come and play a lot of times, bring his band there.
Nice.
And play, and we'd sing songs. And so if I remember one time, we were at a park. This time, on my dad's side, we'd go to the parks a lot of times. We lived right across the street from a park, so a lot of times it was just right close to our house.
Okay.
The pavilion. So about a block away, so we would have it there. And I know that one time my uncle called me up on stage, and I had to sing a song with him.
Okay.
I forget what it was. I don't remember now what it was.
Was this at one of the reunions?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
How about during the holidays? Was the group just as
Uh,
many people?
yeah, we'd end up going to two different places usually on
Okay.
Christmas for holidays, and sometimes later on in life, sometimes we had our Mitten grandparents come to our house,
Okay.
and we had a place out in back. There was a shed, that I had too much wine going out there and
Yeah,
slept.
yeah.
They added another room to it and built it up, and it became a building. We had lights put into it and everything, and it's like a house. And so my grandparents lived there,
Okay.
and then until grandma passed away with cancer.
Now I understand there was once a situation where your nephew was drowning and you came through for
yeah,
him.
yeah, that was on my dad's side. Aunt Jeannie Cox. She married Theodore Cox, and they had girls and one boy. And I told you, I don't know if I mentioned it. We had limestone quarries around here because we had a stone crusher company there that took limestone and crushed it up real fine. And when they got done using it, they'd stop pumping the water out of it and they just let them fill up. And that's what we had about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I know of 5 of them right around pretty close to our home.
Okay.
They had fish in them then too, and that's where I'd go fishing too. But anyway, the quarries is that when the water filled up, you had a shallow edge around the edge of it probably, and it goes out a little ways. Then of course it's dropped straight down, and it's probably down to 60 feet or 70 feet. Right down. Well, we were there swimming with my Aunt Jean, and Teddy was along. He was probably 6, I think, and he was walking around there playing around, and everybody saw it there. And I noticed it a little bit that he started flopping his hands, and then he went under, and he got one off the ledge. So I dove in, went out there, and when I got to him, he was down probably about 10 feet already.
Okay.
I went and grabbed him and swam up to the surface and took him to the shore, and he was coughing and spitting out water and stuff.
How old were you then?
Oh, I was a teenager.
Okay.
I was in high school. I don't remember what grade. But that was a scary thing. Then, the worst part of it is, and then when he got into high school, he got killed in an auto accident later on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was he driving?
No, somebody else was driving.
Was it a drunk driver?
I don't know about the situation.
What are the nicknames your family had for you?
Oh, well, I guess I had several. My dad, when I was young, I know he'd always call me Cricket.
Okay.
And then I lived with that for growing up with him. And then when I got older, when I ran around with my cousin Philip Garrison, he'd call me Doc.
Okay.
So I had a Doc or Cricket. Doc was what they called me when I was older. And of course, when they stopped doing that, when you're not a kid anymore, then your nickname is just Ron. Instead of saying Ronald, they just call you Ron.
So how did you happen to get that name Doc?
I don't know. He was kind of funny that way. I don't know how he got that name, but he just started saying, "Hey, Doc, come here, and I want to show you something."
Okay.
We ran around together a lot. I remember one time there was a park in the west side of town, which was a limestone quarry, but they didn't fill it with water because they had run the water out,
Okay.
kept it out. But we went down in there, and I went climbing up the wall of that stone wall, trying to go up to the top. And one of the rocks I grabbed a hold of to hang on to pulled loose, and I fell down. And the big rock hit me right in the leg, and I couldn't hardly walk. So Phil, my cousin, then had to carry me, drag me home on his shoulders, like all the way up to Aunt Ethel's house. It was about 3 blocks away.
Okay.
For to get me home. But we had all kinds of things go on with us. We got in trouble one time. We went and some neighbor had a garage with the doors open. We went in there and he had a bunch of home brewed wine. And we took a couple of bottles of that thing, and when Uncle Hirsch found out that we had it, we had to go back to the people and knock on the door and tell them we were sorry that we did that. They made us do that, you know. They laughed about it afterwards, but
what else do you remember about Uncle Ralph? His band Skis and the Circle Bar Boys?
Well, I mentioned that before, that he played it on every Saturday on Marion, Indiana at WBAT, and he did during the weekends. He would have shows at various places, restaurants, or parks, or something like that. But he worked as a machinist during the week, you know, and they did their music work on the weekends.
And he was doing this professionally, the music work?
Yeah, too. He got paid for it.
Okay.
Him in the band. He had 4 members and him in the band. And they were good, and they'd have a lot of people around come and see them when they were doing live music.
Okay.
In that area. Back in them times, you didn't have the televisions for a long time of it, you know, and so getting out to a tavern somewhere and having a party and have the band there, you know, it's just.
That was big entertainment at the time.
Yeah, that's what it was. And he did it for 60 years.
60?
60 years.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah. It started when he was probably in his 20s.
So he lived to be, what, 80? Yes.
Yeah, somewhere close to that.
Okay.
Yeah. And his uncles, to be my great uncles, they had 3 of them, Glenn, Joe, and Tate. Glenn played guitar, Tate played the piano, and Joe played the banjo.
Okay.
So them 3 brothers, got the ones that got Uncle Ralph started on playing music. They're the ones that got him started, really.
So it was all family members in the
Yeah.
group.
Yeah.
Nice, nice, nice.